that'll do. Morning guys, how we doing? Alright? How art thou? I'm on the Sony today. Hope you've had a good weekend, people. I think I am. I'm feeling slightly better on my tablets, thank God. Not 100%, but getting there, thank God. Yes, I got rid of those horrible Bristol things because they were rubbish, they weren't working at all, and I've gone back on my Chem ones again. So, very good job too. So we are feeling slightly better. Hopefully I'm not too shaky because, like I say, I've only got the Sony today. Listen to the birds. Lovely, isn't it? Spring's coming. Spring is definitely coming. Not very many signs of spring, but spring is coming. You have to look hard for it. You have to be looking hard for spring at the moment. All this rain, but if you look closely you can see it. There are subtle signs of spring in the air. Definitely the sound of the birds, because it's been very, very quiet over the winter. We've had very few birds because the weather's been so wet and nasty. There's not many of them about, but when it's like this, it's lovely because they all come out and have a nice sing-song with each other. It's lovely. Let's jump in. Capitalism. How the world works. Capitalism. As you can probably tell, I am not an advocate of capitalism. And, well, I suppose it's not a the idea of capitalism is that it's an open free market for everybody, which yes and no. I mean, the thing with capitalism is the market's there for money and profit, which is good, yes, but when you get profit, you always get exploitation of people, or minerals or animals or whatever. You're always exploiting something. I don't think. No, the big capitalism. I'm not on about sort of coming up with small ideas. And all great, I've come up with a brilliant idea to provide something very useful for somebody that doesn't exploit things. I'm not on about the small things like that. I'm on about big capitalism. You know, corporate capitalism. The idea, the capitalists, or the capitalism behind it, right? Now we go, let's think of a town like Portishead, right? You've got Portishead. Now, Portishead has grown massively, and they've built thousands and thousands of new homes in Portishead. And 10 years ago, actually it's probably longer than that, 15 years ago, maybe? Possibly. Anyway, a decade or so, or maybe 2 decades ago, they built their first housing estate in Portishead, which was the start of it all. So what did they do? They built it on floodplain. They built the housing estate on floodplain. And when they first built these houses, obviously the capitalist house builders got lots of money, and the buildings were shoddy. They were a lot of them were sinking. So basically what they had to do, they had to pile drive. A lot of the early houses had a lot of problems. The national house builders had to pay out an awful lot of money to have a lot of houses repaired around there. I mean, I know because I used to work for a building firm, and they actually had to do a lot of work on some of the houses. Basically because they weren't built properly. because they were built on floodplain and they were all sinking. Anyway, later they pile drove. They put piles in, which means they sent down concrete pillars of some of them up to 10 metres down into the ground, to then put in a concrete slab, a reinforced concrete slab, which they called a raft. So you had corners, you had you had posts, piles. Hello, Smelly. Of concrete going down into the ground, and then that was attached to what they would call a raft, which was a reinforced concrete slab in which they'd build the house on. So basically it was a house on stilts, sort of. That was the idea. So basically what they're saying by building that is, this is unsuitable land. This is all soft, it's soggy, it's floodplain. It's floodplain, right? So this was 20 years ago, say. So they did that, so they built all that. Obviously that was to their expense. So to make the money back, what they did was they decided to build numpty housing, like 4 and 5 bedroom homes and flats on the same principle, you see. So they make the money back. Well, come to present day, we're looking at global warming, rising sea levels. Now, hold on a minute, wasn't this floodplain? No, that means that maybe 100, 200 years ago, that was underwater, right? This present time, it's now not underwater. And now they're calling it global warming. So, well, actually, maybe it isn't global warming. Maybe it's actually just returning to what it was before. You know? I think maybe they're thinking it's, maybe they're trying to make us think that we don't know anything, or we don't know any better. But they still continue houses. And in the last 10 years, they've still continued to build the houses on the floodplain. And so we think, right, okay. So these house builders have been allowed to build all these houses on said floodplain, which are now all occupied. Thousands and thousands of homes are now being occupied on this floodplain. Now, when the tides rise, when the sea levels rise in the next 10 or 15 years, I'm assuming these houses are going to be underwater. Is that right? I'm assuming so. Because if it was floodplain before, 200 years ago, it's unsuitable land. They've had the land for a good price, because they're obviously capitalists and they've made their money. So say 15, 20, 25 years, if these houses are now underwater, where do these people go? They're going to have to relocate, aren't they? Because their houses are useless now. These houses that have all been built on these floodplains are now underwater. So there's nowhere for them to live. So what do? Well, if we go back to the house builders again, where house builders can say, oh dear, what a shame. Let's build you some more houses. That was convenient. So they very, very cleverly having a forward plan to keep building all the time. I mean, if you were to build a house on a safe, and I said safe piece of land, you're not going to give yourself any work in 20, 30, 40 years time, are you? When the tides come in and the levels rise, all these people are going to be high and dry. Well, that's no good, because we want to keep our house building going. We want to keep this as a sustainable industry. We want to keep building and building and building. So if we build on the floodplains now, when those houses are then underwater and flooded and unlivable, they're going to need somewhere else to live. So then we'll have to build some more houses. See? Now, I saw this 20 years ago. as did many other people. But unfortunately, people needing homes, especially if you need an affordable home, where are you going to live? You're going to live on a floodplain, or you're going to live in low-lying areas that are subjected to flooding. And the thing is, these houses are sold cheaply, so again it's the poor people that are stuffed again, isn't it? So the capitalists have shafted the poor ones, or shafted the working class man again. But then that was the agenda all along. That was what it was in the first place. It's all very clever. It's a very clever system. The thing is, they don't think of now. They don't think of this present moment in time. They think of 20, 30 years ahead. They're always thinking ahead, which most people aren't. Most people just think of the now and the minute they're in at the moment. They don't plan that far ahead, because that's for some people that can be more than a lifetime's worth. But they're always thinking way ahead. Maybe for their children, you know? Disgusting. But then it's always been like that. Maybe things can change, but I think as long as power is money, and money is power, then unfortunately I don't think there's a lot of chance, I'm afraid. You know, we've got all this global warming and all this stuff going on. I think it's too much too late now. I think it's all the planet is changing. We have to go with it. Nature is having to adapt to how it's been destroyed, and we've got no choice. We're going to have to put up with it. You know, oh dear, we're going to be flooded. Oh dear, it's going to be too hot. It's going to be horrendous in the future because of the capitalists. They've created this. They have created this. They've created it for their profit. Our future is now created for them, and I imagine that in another 20, 30 years they'll probably be colonising Mars and trying to profit from that. I mean, I've read stories about people wanting to mine on the moon. So they're already looking at profits off, making profit off planet, because they've pretty much destroyed this one. So there you go. So yeah, it's all very interesting. Sorry, it wasn't supposed to be doom and gloom this morning. I just thought it was an interesting topic. I was looking at all the flooding and stuff, and looking at all the people underwater, and not people that have had the floods up north and Gloucester and all that, and I'm thinking, it's awful, isn't it? And yet the government do nothing. They don't bother to do anything. All they do is allow the capitalists to build more houses, to make more profit. And the thing is, at the end of the day, how they solve it is by putting insurance premiums up for everybody else that's not affected by it. And the ones that are affected by it. So your insurance policies triple or quadruple to cover the cost of people to have their houses repaired. But by repairing a house to flooding, it's not stopping the flooding, is it? I mean, they might have had their houses rewired, they've had it replastered, they've had it all new furniture. Lovely, they've got the house done. But 5 years' time, the same thing happens again. And the insurance company isn't going to pay for them to be relocated to higher ground. They're still stuck in a floodplain or a low-level, low-lying area. It's capitalism, and that's what it is. It's not good. So if you get the choice to look at where your house is, try and buy something up high. Don't buy what they offer, because it's fake. Unfortunately, my house is at low level. I believe it's about a metre above sea level, so I'm stuffed also. But our house was built in the 1930s, and I imagine that was probably built on the cheap as well, because it was low lying. But there you go, that's capitalism for you. Anyway, have a night, guys. Hope you enjoyed the vid. This is lovely. Right, see you next vid. There's Ellie, look. Bye. There she is. Woo!